to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And I loved you and knew that you loved me. Come on. La, 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La, 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Well, I would feel 10 feet tall if you were at my side. Ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. The kings were young and wants to be in love. Just smile like me, and that's the way I'd feel if I had you. Come on, girl. La la la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la, la la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Come on, la la la, la la la.
I would. No, I'm sorry. You have to call me. I forgot what you do. Sweet flowers.
La la la, la la la.
Oh, that
There
made me
ain't
sad.
nothing in this world I couldn't do. La la la, la la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. I'm just a lonely boy in a great big lonely world. Someone like you could make my dreams come true. Then all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hands in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do.
The Bible says something, when you find a good man, beat a path to his door. And I was just wondering, I'm a good woman. Would you please beat a path to my door? I would really like to see you. Thank you.
La la la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La la la, la la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you.
Yeah, jumping.
You can make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like a friend to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And you and you and me. Come on, la la la, la la la. This world I couldn't do. La la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Well, I would feel 10 feet tall if you were at my side. Ain't nothing in this just a lonely boy in a great big lonely world. But someone like you could make my dreams come true. Then all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hand in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. Ah, la, 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. Ah, la, 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. You can make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like a friend to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And I loved you and knew that you loved me. Come on. La, 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La, 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Well, I would feel 10 feet tall if you were at my side. Ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. The kings would give up thrones to me, and love would just run out like me, and that's the way I'd feel if I had you. Come on, girl. La la la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la, la la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Come on, la la la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La la la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La la la, la la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. I'm just a lonely boy in a great big lonely world. But someone like you could make my dreams come true. Then all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hand in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. Ah, la la la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. Ah, la la la, la la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. You just put your hands in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like a friend to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And I loved you and knew that you loved me. Come on. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Well, I would feel 10 feet tall if you were at my side. Ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. The kings would give up thrones to be in love, who would just smile like me, and that's the way I'd feel if I had you. Come on, girl. La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Come on, little woman. La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do.
Maybe it's different.
La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. I'm just a lonely boy in a great big lonely world. But someone like you could make my dreams come true. Then all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hand in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do.
That's fine.
La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. You can make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like a friend to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And I loved you and knew that you loved me. Come on. La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. Well, I would feel 10 feet tall if you were at my side. Ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do.
I'm proud.
The kings would give up thrones to be in love, who would just smile like me, and that's the way I'd feel
I'm
if I
proud with
had
them.
you.
Oh, kid the tail. Ooh, 17. Ooh, something. Around this man, 17. Kid the tail. Read uppity people books. I don't have crap. I don't know, books. Yeah, books. Kids are terrible. You can have one in London. Is that one in London or New York?
A lonely boy in a great big lonely world. Someone like you could make my dreams come true. Then all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hand in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La la la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. You can make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like a friend to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And I love you and knew that you love me. Come on.
Like a teeny one in the Hollywood Mirror. You do.
Someone like you could make my dreams come true. Then all the mountains I could climb if you just put your hand in mine. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la, la la la. There ain't nothing in this world I couldn't do. La 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 la. My dreams would all come true if I had you. You can make a rainy day sunny in my mind. You make the world seem like a friend to me. Yeah, there ain't nothing I couldn't do if you were there to see me through. And I loved you and knew that you loved me. Come on, la la la. This world I couldn't do.
That's good, Bob.
My dreams would all come true if I had you. Well, I would.
Territorial Correctional Facility in Canyon City, Colorado, to meet a bank robber once married to one of the country's best-selling authors. In 1972, Danielle Steele was a 20-something journalist when she met Danny Zugelder inside the Vacaville prison in California.
She was doing a freelance article, and part of the article required her to go and interview some prison inmates.
Zugelder was doing time for robbing banks. Would you say it was love at first sight?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
And so despite her knowledge of you being a bank robber, she still pursued a relationship over the phone?
Well, she was an upper-class socialite that was into rebelling, and she was going through a separation with her then-husband, who was a banker. So the irony of going from a banker to a bank robber, she pursued me.
During the next year and a half, Steele wrote to Zugelder and visited him often.
She would come up on a Thursday and leave on Monday.
And how many hours would you have together?
All day, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a great physical attraction. We would make out in the visiting room.
She did everything she could to help get him parole, and set him up, got him a job. He got out, gave him a place to live.
On the outside, Danny, the ex-con, didn't fit in. Was it difficult to adjust to her sort of high society life after you'd been in prison for so long?
Oh yeah, it was really hard to adjust. You know, basically I had the power in prison, and when I got out, she had all the power. It was her house, her money, her expense accounts.
Soon after his release, Zugelder went on a crime spree.
In a week's time, he mugged and assaulted an old woman, literally around the corner from Danielle's apartment. And also in that same week's time, he raped a woman.
Zugelder ended up behind bars again. So what happened next then?
We would sit and talk about it in the visiting room. Hey, you know, we might as well get married. We could have conjugal visits. And so we decided to get married.
Basically for the conjugal visits.
Well,
You're
yeah.
nuts.
Well,
Our next guest has emerged as one of America's foremost contemporary novelists. In the United States alone, her novels have sold more than 16 million copies. Authored such bestsellers as A Perfect Stranger, The Promise, Season of Passion, and now Crossings. Author Danielle Steele. I was commenting, this is fascinating, I was commenting on the cover. I had no idea, and none of us do have any idea of the importance of the artwork and the graphics until you've done a book. And you said...
That's a big difference. The author has no control over it. And if you work very hard and very long, they finally give you something called cover consultation, which means they kind of wave it past you once or twice before it goes to print. But that
does that mean that if the company wants just badly to sell your book and they want to put a half-naked lady on the cover, which has nothing to do with the story, they can do that
whatever
without
they
your...
want to put on it,
Okay.
you're stuck with. Also, the jacket copy, which most people don't realize. I've been fighting over that. They put whatever they want on the back and on the jacket.
This is very attractive, however.
I fought hard for it.
What did they want to put on this?
They wanted to put flowers, and it's a book with a lot of research in it about the war, and it's a book that men would read as much as easily as women would, and I wanted it to represent that, and with flowers all over it, most men wouldn't buy it.
How extensive was the research? Can you...
Very extensive. I read 19 books on the Normandy alone, and we did a lot of research on the war years between 1939 and 1942.
A couple of Normandy crossings here.
Yes, and other crossings.
I understand, like many of your settings in your books, you were born into a very affluent family, which if you had your druthers that'd be, I don't know whether that'd be my choice or not.
Oh, I love rice and beans.
Do you? Was it easy for you to get started? Comparatively easy?
No, I don't think that has anything to do with anything. I worked as hard as any other struggling young author when I started.
But you do have people when you're from an affluent beginning. You have people. Your parents might know someone who can at least make a phone call, make it a little easier for you to make contacts.
Well, my parents didn't believe in that, and at the time I started writing, I was supporting myself and a small child, and very hungry at times.
Right. You were preparing to do something other than this, actually. Was it the interior design that you were interested in?
I was going to do fashion design, and I discovered that wasn't it. And then I wrote my first book, which sold, and the next 5, which didn't. And after that, I decided I was going to go into the ministry. But then one of the books sold, and I changed my mind again.
Why do you think people are so fascinated about reading about people who are from affluent?
I am Loki of Asgard, and you will regret this. When you picked up the Tesseract...
Yeah, couldn't interview her.
backgrounds?
I think that depends on the people. I think people are interested in reading about people. And I think the one thing, some of my characters are affluent, as you put it, and some aren't. And I think the life of my books is that the characters are very real. And I think that's why people read my books. And even if they're affluent, it doesn't prevent, as in real life, it doesn't prevent your children from getting sick, your husband from walking out on you. The realities of life have very little to do with affluence or not. It's more comfortable. But
maybe that is why it reassures people that it can happen to anyone.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Even the rich have problems.
Exactly.
All do, yeah. When you talk to successful people, I remember one time asking the late Johnny Mercer what his biggest thrill was, and he had such a wonderful career. He was walking down the street one day, I heard somebody whistling one of my songs. What would it be for an author?
Well, I lead a very isolated life as a writer. I work alone, and you don't have a lot of contact with the public generally in terms of your books. If I see someone reading or buying one of my books, it's really exciting. I just got on a plane last week, and the person behind me was reading my book. And the people I was with wanted to tell them it was me. No,
didn't you want to turn around and say, are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I did.
Did you do that?
And I didn't do it that time, but last year I was with my children and someone bought one of the books and I couldn't stand it. We were in a bookstore and I finally said, why did you buy that book? And she said that she liked the way it sounded, but I was very intrigued and that was very exciting.
It's such a great talent to be able to sit down and write something that you know other people are going to be fascinated. I talked to some of the authors. I talked to Neil Simon a couple of days ago, and I'm always intrigued by how writers, they all have different writing habits. Some of them write at the middle of the night. Some go off and lock themselves in. They don't want to be with family. They don't want to be with anyone. Harold Robbins is one of those. He goes to Europe and locks himself in and does a book, and then he, sends for his wife when it's
My
finished.
children complain if I do that. The worst story about my early writing years was with my small daughter at the time, and we were alone, and I was struggling, and she had a friend over. She knocked on my office door one night as I was typing away, and she said, we came to say goodnight to you, and we're very hungry, and I had forgotten to put dinner.
Oh my. There's a plot.
Do you have a set schedule, that you stick to?
And I'm working on rewrites or on outlines. I work pretty much an 8-hour day, and when I'm working on the first draft of a book, I work about 20 hours. I just work straight through until I
20 hours
for about a month or 6 weeks, and then it's finished, and then I can live like a civilized person again.
You're only human. What happens when a writer has a dry period? Say you're in the middle of a book and all of a sudden you come up dry.
Well, it doesn't happen in the middle of a book because I work from an outline. Well, the dry period with me would happen more in the outline. And once I sit down to write it, I know where I'm going. It's scary. It's panic-striking, but I think much of writing, you talk about the talent, I think most of it is discipline. I think many more people can write than they realize. It's just a question of sitting there and making yourself do it.
What an important word.
Discipline, oh yes.
Do we know about it in our business?
Yes.
How do you get the outline? Is it some
That
sensory
comes
thing, some
from-
image that comes?
It starts in a little tiny piece, almost like a remembered dream.
Okay.
And suddenly it's just something that kind of crosses your mind and you keep working on it till bigger and
Does it ever take the form of perhaps seeing something happen in a restaurant between two people, suddenly saying to yourself, what would happen if these two people did such and such? Is it that?
Kind of, it really, for me, the beginnings of it is really like a remembered dream, that feeling of something kind of whizzing past your mental screen of,
Interesting.
now what was that? And then you keep looking for it and it emerges. But it's really a question of pushing it, whether you feel like it or not.
Your style is different than most of your contemporaries. Excuse me, your sex is not as explicit as Harold Robbins or Sidney Sheldon, people like that.
I'm more comfortable doing it the way I do it. No. I think you write what's in your soul. You can't just do science fiction if you normally are a historian. And people say, gee, why don't you write a whatever? And whatever is in there, and that's how I write. It's not a conscious thing of this is how I'm going to do it. It's more what comes out.
How do you feel about people like Harold Robbins and Sidney Sheldon?
I respect them a lot. Sidney Sheldon has the same agent I do, I think.
You know him?
No, I don't. I know very few writers, actually. I think most writers know very few writers because you're always alone.
I never forget one night I walked into a restaurant here in town, and in the same booth were Sidney Sheldon and Irving Wallace and their respective wives, and I went, I wonder what they're talking about. So I walked over, I know both of them, and I said hello to them, and then about a week later I saw Sidney, and I said, that night at Mateo's, I said, we were all wondering what you and Irving might have been talking about. And he said, we were talking about the price of food. Now, wait, you don't mean it. He said, yes, we were. And things that we all talk about.
It's occasionally nice to know another writer, to have somebody to share the problems with and the agonies with. Alex Haley is probably my closest friend other than my husband. Mm-hmm. And it's wonderful to be able to call somebody up at 2 in the morning and say, I can't stand it anymore.
Did you have a big influence early on? Somebody that kind of stirred you?
Not really. I just kind of wandered blindly, which is probably why after the first book, the other 5 wound up in the basement. I could have used an influence early on.
Really? You know, I thought you had written for Wall Street Journal and New York Times?
It was more that they wrote about me. I wound up in a funny business when I was very young.
You had a PR agency or something with some other girls?
A PR agency called Supergirls in the days.
Supergirls?
Yeah, so we took...
You were ahead of your time, weren't you?
Yeah, contemporary title.
Really, and it was sort of before women's lib was in, and we did this thing, and so we ended up being written about it. And actually, that led me to writing because...
What are the other girls doing now? The other Supergirls?
Mostly having babies. I think one wrote a cookbook.
Listen, you don't laugh about that.
No, I've just written my first nonfiction book with 6 friends on pregnancy and childbirth, so that's sort of a new
It's wonderful.
For me.
Your next book?
My next book after this is Paperback of Palomino. And then there are 4 coming out next year.
But you have one with the title called Changes?
Changes. That's October '83.
You're that far ahead?
Pushing.
You know what you're doing a year from now?
I should live so long.
Do you know what you're doing a year from now, dog?
We hope it's
I don't know what I'm doing.
Just hope we won't be out of work.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone, very much. And next we're going to visit with our entertainment correspondent, Sandy Kenyon, right after this.
No, there is a reason actors date other actors. It's just easier.
Are you part of Tom's team? Oh. We Tom's parole officers.
She's joking.
I'll never use another pair of protective underwear again. Right now, you can qualify for a free box. All you...
Hi, I'm Belinda Luscombe. I'm an editor-at-large at Time Magazine. Answering today's 10 questions is Danielle Steele, who is the author of a stunning 113 books and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of consecutive weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. And we're very pleased today to have Danielle Steele with us. So our first question, Danielle, comes from John Frederick of Rochester Hills, Michigan. And he wants to know, of all the books you've written, which of them do you feel most attached to?
Of all the books I've written, I probably feel the most attached to the one about my son, which is His Bright Light. But that's nonfiction. It's not fiction. I always feel the most attached, fiction-wise, to the one I just finished. So, and the one that's just come out right now, that would be Legacy, the new book.
You've already written 100 books. Do you have a rough idea of how many more you'd like to write?
Maybe another 100.
Another 100? Yeah. Whew. This is a related question from Sloane Peaver of Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Have you ever had writer's block? And how did you overcome it?
I had writer's block once, due to traumatic circumstances in my life. My son died, my marriage ended, and I stopped writing for about 14 months. I was afraid that was it forever. And I was actually in a car with a friend in London, and we had a driver, and the driver had disappeared for a little while and was then driving us. And as we went through an intersection, I looked, I guess, to my left, and there was a double-decker bus heading at us at full speed, and the driver was not pulling out of the intersection. And I screamed. The driver then sort of pushed his foot on the gas. The bus scraped the back bumper, and we then discovered that the driver was drunk. But the good news was, it shook me up so badly, I got a great idea for a book, went back to my hotel and started writing again.
Wow, that's represented really differently. I'm going to skip to a question here about your son. And a lot of people wrote in to say how much your book about Nick meant to them. And apparently some of these people have written to you and you've written back to them, which they're incredibly moved by. Deborah Lathrop of Reading, Pennsylvania, has a son with bipolar disorder as well, and wanted to know if you would ever be interested in being a spokesperson for mental illness and for bipolar disorder.
Not really officially. I mean, I am in a way anyway, because I wrote a book about having a child who's bipolar and being the family of our experience, and my purpose was to sort of open it up to people and show them what we experienced, what he experienced. Also, I mean, my life was really taken up in great part by his illness for many years. And when he died, I remember thinking, I don't want this to become my life now as a crusade. So I feel like there's a good balance between speaking up and addressing the issues, but not letting it be the only thing I do.
As a mother of so many children, how did you manage to write, find a publisher, and care for them in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, I only had one child, so it was more manageable. I found an agent, which was as hard as finding a publisher, and I wrote my first book when I was 19. And then I kept on having children and writing books, but once I had kids, I wrote when they were asleep, or in the day when they were in school, or both, usually when they were in school, and then at night when they were in bed. I didn't sleep a whole while.
Do you have a massive sleep deficit that you like to catch up on?
It catches up with me occasionally. I don't need a lot of sleep, which is a great blessing in my life. So I usually sleep 5 is a generous night, 4 is about what I sleep.
We have another question, this one from Kampala in Uganda. This man wants to know what your response is to the opinion that novels like yours are mercenary, lack deep ideas, and can't long survive.
I think he hasn't read my book. 590 million readers, and it says something different. And I think popular literature does survive. Charles Dickens is a wonderful example of that. A long time ago, people accused him of being superficial and mercenary. And people want to read, and it's about what happens to people in real lives.
As you might imagine, the audience for romance novels have changed over the last 20
They're
30
punishing
years.
me for watching
In a generation where reality TV and online connections
There was a lot of
supreme,
flashy graphics in the beginning. It was very triggering. So I closed my eyes.
Oh, one thing, I try and address young people's issues. I mean, I put a lot of young characters in the current books and the things that people are dealing with today. And I try and keep the books very current.
They're trying to raise my blood pressure.
Old readers will be loyal and new ones will be intrigued.
I don't know what the problem is.
Do you feel comfortable about writing about technology and the way that people connect online?
Sometimes when I don't feel comfortable about something, I research it. And
I didn't draw any conclusions about Danielle Steele early on or anything. I read her books when I lived at the Roslyn. I don't know if I had a computer or not. Anyway, when I first lived there, like the first 6 months.
Do you feel like would that be something you put in one of your books, like the sort of way that we?
I did. It'll be out in the spring.
Oh.
I remember walking to the library in the terrible heat. The library wasn't far, but it was very hot. I don't know where my car was. Maybe Bertha was borrowing it. But I would go alphabetically, on the shelf, title, alphabetical by title. You're allowed to check out 7 or something of the same, but I would check out more than they said of the same author, and they didn't. That was fine. And I would go through and then read them, come back, go to the next level, read them, you know, maybe 7 at a time, back and forth, and then I started back from the beginning, and I don't know, I did that every day. I read Danielle Steel novels every day. And it helped, well, I don't know how to explain it. It just helped me think clearly and stay in my conscious mind, and it was almost kind of a nervous habit. I don't know. It helped me, though. It kept me thinking, I don't know. It just kept me thinking, okay. And it really helped, and I don't know. I guess that after time, you know, I'd read them so many times. I guess I just stopped. I'm not sure when the computer came. Oh, I must have had a computer, because I had it on Linden Street. I don't know. Well, that's true. I heard something, or it went through my head. Let me hear your voice, let me see your face. For your voice is sweet and your face is beautiful. And that's when I started going on a webcam. So, I don't know when I was recording. Just, if I was just recording, but there were years. I was webcamming and recording on several recorders at the same time. Translating what was being said in the astral plane. Seemed like years. Anyway, I don't know what the big deal is. I can't tell if she's evil or not. I can't tell that. I just liked her books. I don't know. I've never been wealthy or anything. I don't know. I had it running through my head at some point, a criticism of you shouldn't read that kind of book. You know, you should be reading classics or something. That I was violating some programming by reading Danielle Steel books. I don't know. No. I don't know. I love that she has several children. She devotes her books to her children mostly.
Well, look forward to that. Thank you.
On that note, thank you very much, Danielle Steel.
Thank you so much, Belinda. This has been fun.
Fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to the Museum of Laptops, a journey back to a time before we asked the question.
Yeah, so Dishes on Dangerous Games live on
We are here now with best-selling author and one of our favorite guests, Danielle Steel. She's written 150 books, 160 and counting. Can't wait to read her latest one. It's called Dangerous Games. It is out now, and it is great to have you back with us as always, my friend.
I am so thrilled to be here. Robin is my favorite person in the world. So
when I was going through my health crisis, she sent me books that weren't even out yet that she was working on, so I would have something to read. But we can go. So usually it's 6 books. You said last time we saw you, you said you work at 6 books out a year.
Yeah.
That's increased to 70.
7. Yes.
How do you do that?
I don't know. I just work all the time. 7 is interesting. It's sort of like jumping through flaming hoops, but it's exciting.
How do you keep the characters all straight? And sometimes do you forget and put a character in the wrong book?
I'm very, very tired. It's only happened a couple of times, and suddenly there they are in the wrong book. It's like, oh, get them off the Titanic.
So tell us about this one. I hear this one is a little different. It's like political and international intrigue.
I try and keep them all different, and this one is
is a political thriller about corrupt politicians and international oil deals, and there's murder and all sorts of excitement in it. And it was very fun to write, and there are always surprises in the book, and I ended up calling my editor in the middle of the night when somebody killed somebody else and said, "You're never going to believe it. He just killed him." So it surprised even me, but it was a fun book, and it's very different.
Well, they're always a page-turner, always a page-turner. And you have devoted super fans, and we have a couple here that would like, Sophia would like to ask you a question. What's your question?
Other than your own, what are some of your favorite books that you have read?
Oh, I don't get enough time to read other people's books. Unfortunately. I enjoy, you know, sort of very popular fiction and things that I can just relax with. And I read a lot of religious stuff, which I enjoy. I love Joel Osteen.
Oh, I love Joel.
He's fun. And
very uplifting.
Yeah, very. And sometimes French novelists and stuff, but most of the time I have to read me.
That's not a problem at all. And Gray, you have a question as well.
So my question is, does your book Perfect Life, that's my favorite one, or any of your other books, do they come from personal experiences?
No, they sometimes come from something I've seen or not necessarily a personal experience. But I was intrigued in that book by the idea of sometimes famous lives
She likes
look
Joel
so
Osteen.
perfect to the outside world. And I mean, you've seen that too, and everybody thinks, oh wow, but they
I do
don't
too.
realize the tragedies or the
I was told he got his
struggles that
material
they have
from
behind
me.
them. So I like the idea of a woman with a big career who is, you know, struggling to keep the career and who has a personal challenge with a daughter who is sight impaired. And so it wasn't personal, but it's the
Joel Osteen was, you know, targeted like from traditional Christian groups and stuff for being something or other. And I thought that was par for the course. He had original ideas, like you don't have to hold on to long-term friendships. You don't have to hold on to them for your whole life. If you outgrow somebody, you know, just, you know, close the door on that relationship and leave yourself open to new friendships and stuff. There was more. When I'd flip channels, if I saw him, I'd listen for a while. It was pretty refreshing. The only criticism I thought was valid is when the flooding, when the hurricane came in Houston, and the flood and everything, he didn't open up his very large church, cathedral, or whatever it was, to people who had to flee their homes. He didn't open it up to them. He kept it closed, and I thought that was a valid criticism, that he didn't open up his church to them.
things I care about.
Gotcha. But something that was very personal, around Christmas time, you started choking, and your daughter saved your life?
Very personal. And actually, it was an interesting experience. It had never happened to me before. And I had a cold, which I have again. And I threw a vitamin C in and went running off to do stuff, and it got stuck, but totally stuck, no air. And it was the most panicky feeling. And they say that mostly people run off and hide, but instead I ran into the hallway where all my kids were home for Christmas and pointed to my throat, but there was absolutely no air going through. And all of them started, and they're grown-ups, and there were like 12 or 14 people, they all started to scream and say, oh my God, she's choking, what do we do? And nobody knew. And the Heimlich is a really important thing to know for a stranger or a family member. And one of my daughters, not knowing what else to do, picked me up and banged me on the floor. I mean, literally, she's taller than I am. And I was going, no, 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 no. But it worked. I mean, she bonked me on the floor, and it popped out, but it really scared me to death. So now, very inelegantly, I put up the choking signs for restaurants in our kitchen, in both our homes. Do you know how to do the Heimlich? But it was a good lesson for all of us. That nobody knew what to do, but it worked.
Oh, well, we're glad that it's...
I am too.
I'm sure that you are.
It really scared me. Now, every time I've taken a vitamin, I walk into someone's room and say, I am taking a vitamin. So if I keel over, they know why.
Well, Danielle, never enough time. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Is out now. Guess what? Everyone in the audience is going home.
If you're under the age of 65 and on Medicare, you may not be receiving all the benefits you qualify for. The year 2021 has more benefits than ever before.
I'm here with the most incredible...
I'm gonna pause for a minute and upload this. It's probably gonna get blocked.